preparing, and we are on.
Yes.
3, 2, 1, go. So give me a second here. Let me get online here so that I can monitor the chat. That way we can see what people are commenting about. All right, let's go. Let's give a few moments. See if people can chime in. Have you seen a lot of the show? Like, have you?
In a bunch. I mean, sometimes I miss it, but then I still kind of, you can still watch them later. So yeah, that's why it's so refreshing. There's people that are my neighbors, or some people I know, some I don't. It's very interesting.
Oh, that's great. Hi, Jody. Welcome. For those of you who are starting to hop on here on the live stream here, if you could please just put a comment in, and let's see today's comment. Comment the word blue if you can hear us, just so that we know that our stream is going well and that you can hear our audio and everything. And if you are watching this on a replay, would you please just go ahead and comment the word, let's see, pink. All right, so comment the word blue if you're watching on a live, and comment the word pink if you are watching on a replay. And so we're gonna get started here. I have Elle Wallstein here with me. But before we get to her, which I'm eagerly wanting to do so, welcome to the Wisdom Club live show at 5. I recently changed the name from Live with Leo at 5 to Wisdom Club Live at 5 because I want to start to serve everybody in my private group called the Wisdom Club with Leo Chen. And so if you guys have a chance, go over there and join it. I'm going to go ahead and type in the URL here. And that way people can go over there and join. So anyway, I'm going to be doing a lot more activity and everything over there. Oops, looks like I got a typo here. 1 second. I got to get this. There we go.
Maybe we can put this up on the tripod. I think it's fine. It's my arms.
Hi, Beth.
Not yet.
Welcome to the show. So anyway, if you guys can join the group, I would love to have you. For all those who are watching and are not already in the Wisdom Club group, I'm going to be sharing a lot of stuff coming up that I'm planning for the group. I want to really focus and give as much as I can to the group, my private group there, because I just think that we have a dedicated, really great group of people who are local, as well as other people that I know, friends and family. And so I just want to give as much as I can. And I'm going to be sending these live videos to the group instead of on my personal profile. And so if you guys can join that, that would be great. I'm going to be repeating that here once in a while because I want to make sure I get the information out and get the announcement out. So without further ado, I want to get started with Elle Wallstein. She's been a Facebook friend of mine, and I know that she has a very interesting background. And I brought her on to kind of talk about her life and her journey and the wisdom that she's learned along the way. So I can't wait, but let me introduce her to you. This is Elle Wallstein. She's in Laguna Beach right now, and we got the nice statue in the back. And so I want to kind of just start out by asking you some basic questions about kind of, where you were born and, your upbringing and that kind of stuff. Kind of give us a little bit of past history and that leading up to kind of ending up here in Orange County, California.
Hi, everyone. Can you guys see me? Leo?
I can, yes.
Okay. Then I hope everyone else can too. My name is Elle Wallstein, and my friends call me Ellie. This is a name that I took on a couple of years ago because the name I was born with, I was born in Germany, in East Germany, kind of in what now is the middle of Germany, the Thuringian forest. Very hilly, it's beautiful. And I grew up in East Germany and until the wall came down. And the name I was given was Kathleen, but it doesn't sound like that in German. So the German version is much more softer. It's Kathleen. And I always had a problem. I think a lot of Germans do to pronounce a TH in English without spitting at people. So it's kind of hard when you want to introduce yourself and you say, "Hi, I'm Kathleen." But then people started calling me Kathy, and I figured that it was time to move on from that name. So yes, I changed my first name. That might be another unusual thing that not a very many people know about me. But today I would like to talk about things that happened in my life, and it kind of seems like I'm bouncing back and forth. So I've lived in Germany, of course, then in Switzerland. I moved to the States. I've lived in Chicago, in Salt Lake City. And so I was kind of moving west slowly. And I've also lived a year in China, which was probably the most mind-altering experience so far.
So real quick, just go over a little bit what you talked about, and really, I love that you changed your name. And maybe you don't hear that much, but you'll know that I immigrated to the U.S. and Leo was not my birth name either, and so I'll tell the little short story
Yeah.
before you continue. And the short story is that when I came on a Friday, and I had to go to school on a Monday, and I had I didn't know any English. I did not know a single word of English, and all I knew was the alphabet that I learned just 2 weeks before I arrived. And
Wow.
so on Friday, I arrived, and on Saturday, my mom handed me a book, and she said, "Here, pick a name, pick something that short and easy, and that you can remember, so that when the teacher calls your name, you'll know that that's you." So I sat, so I sat there on the stairs. I can still remember like exactly where I sat, and I opened up the book, and right in the middle, like right in the middle of the book, and there was the name Leo. And I looked at it, like I didn't flip around or nothing like that. Like it was just there. Like I opened it and it was there. And I
It
thought,
was me.
I can remember that. It's 3 letters. It's 2 little syllables. I can remember that. So that was it. I had no thoughts about it. I didn't ask anybody. I didn't ask if it sounded right. I didn't ask if it was common. I didn't ask anything. I just said that's my name. So that was it. So I appreciate people who have changed their names, because that was their choice, and it was half my choice and half by chance.
Yeah.
And for most of my life I didn't need another Leo. It was not a very common name here in California, and
Yeah.
so probably I would say in the last 10-15 years I started to meet more people named Leo, but then my name was just Leo. It wasn't like Leonardo, it wasn't Leonard, it wasn't like short for anything, it was just Leo. So that's a little bit different too. So anyway, when I heard your story about picking your own name, that I always appreciate that, because I feel like I picked my own name too.
Oh, can I ask you a question? Because I wonder if you picking a new name changed you in any way. If you felt like something was different, or if it kind of liberated you or anything. I would really like to know that.
Well, that's a great question. And I don't think anybody has ever asked me that. And the answer is that when I was growing up, I always felt a little bit odd about the name because I didn't know anybody with the same name. And I look around and there were multiple Johns and multiple, Jennifers. People had names that they could, kind of relate to in some way. I didn't have that, so I thought I was like somehow different and different. So I would question myself: is it different good? Is it different bad? And I wasn't sure. And so there was this always a little bit of ambiguity about it. But as I grew into an adult and I got older and I started, you know, uh, you know, living my own life and doing my own things, and um, I start to realize that that uniqueness was something to be proud of because I didn't want to have all these people with the same names. I used to have this running joke around my friends, and somebody would call out somebody's name. Let's just say Mike. Somebody says, "Hey, Mike," and then like my running joke was that like 10 people turn around, you know. And so
That
when they called my name, I knew that I was the only one.
that's very, very true. And I don't know if you know, but my older son, his name is Leonard.
Mhm.
So he
Oh,
doesn't like Leo. He likes Leonard, which I liked because it goes in every language. So I thought, well, if he ever moves into any Germanic speaking place, he will be Leonard. Um, if he moves to Italy, he will be Leonardo. So there's just this openness to the name, and but yeah, you guys share kind of the root of that name for sure.
yeah,
And he likes that there is no other Leonards that he knows of unless they're like 83 years old. So the uniqueness is certainly a big I think it's an advantage, maybe not when you're really small, but you grow, like you said, I think you said you grow into it. And this is what happened when I picked a new name. It felt like, wow, I can be a totally different person. And so you start pushing against, I don't know, boundaries or things that you think you ought to do or you can't do. So it's just broadened my whole perspective quite a bit.
that's great. So both you picking your own name and picking my own name, it served both of us, right? It was all a good thing, right?
I think so, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just had to stop and talk about that because that's very very interesting. So you were born in Germany and you came. So then you had um, you spent some time in China, which you know gave you a really opened up a lot of perspective about different culture and things like that. And so tell us more about like what kinds of experiences you had in your life.
Well, let's start with when the wall came down. Um, that was a really strange moment because first you are kind of fenced in, you can't travel, you can't do anything, and then all of a sudden you're free, and freedom is, that's a lot to handle. So I mean, I had the advantage, I was in my early 20s, so I was really young, and I thought, wow, this is great. And I just sent letters. That was before email, by the way. So I sent letters to European universities asking for a scholarship. And that's how I ended up living. First, I studied, and then I lived in Switzerland for a while. And just the culture. And, there's 4 languages in a tiny little country. And I love languages. So that kind of built on that. And then I had the opportunity to go to the United States, which was always, I mean, when you grow up in East Germany, Paris is as far away as the moon. And so the United States was like, oh, wow. And I spoke very little English. And I arrived in Chicago in February of 1996. It was freezing cold. And I thought, oh my God, what have I done? And I couldn't understand a word that bus driver was trying to say to me. And it was just really crazy. But this full immersion was amazing. So what I always recommend to my students is to surround themselves with the language that they want to learn, because otherwise, kind of you're stuck in your mother tongue. And this just going out there and learning it while doing worked really well for me. So Chicago was awesome. And I had so much fun going to community college. I applied and I got my master's in English, which I thought I would never do anything with, because my background is marketing, consulting. I've worked in finance, but nothing ever with teaching or fine arts. But 20 years later, it just comes in handy. So I like to look at life and kind of see what it throws me and go into the direction, because it's much easier than swimming upstream, that's for sure.
Yeah, and there's a lot of downsides to swimming against
Yeah.
this, because you may not be meant for going in that direction, which is
Yeah.
why it's directing you somewhere else. And so we always have to, that's why people say, like, right, follow your heart, and that's part of what it is, right? Because if your heart doesn't feel right, you're going against the grain, then it doesn't feel right. But for other people, could be doing the same thing and they're flowing right into it, right? So I think that's very true. You can't fight those things that is just really not part of what works for you, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. If you live through changes that big, like moving to a whole different country, or your country disappearing, and then you're kind of out there and you try to find a new identity, I think what it makes your life is, I'm trying to find the right words. When you look at a tree, like a tree stump that's just been cut, you see all these, if you live your whole life in the same place and you do the same stuff, it blends more and it goes faster. But if you do different things and you open yourself up to different experiences and places, and so that adds these rings in your life that are discernible. I mean, I don't know if I'm clear, but it's really hard to think about, oh, when was that, when everything just happens at the same place and pays the same surroundings. But if you change these surroundings and if you really venture out, you will always remember. It's like, oh my gosh, that was the year I did this, or that was the year I started working as that. So it seems like you can actually extend your life. You can make it seem richer and longer that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think it does. I think my brain works that way, because if I want to remember something, if I like, oh, what was that one thing, or what was that thing I had, you always have a reference of a certain year or a certain time of the year of that year or that decade, or those early 30s or late 30s or whatever. And when you can reference that, your memory gets better, because it's almost like your brain you can file those memories in a chronological order. so that you can jump right into those times because it's organized. So that's
Yeah.
how I try to remember things, and when we're accumulating so much data, emails and files and all kinds of things. And when I used to work in IT, I used to tell people like, okay, at the beginning of each year, let's take all the stuff that you don't need anymore and let's file it away for that year.
Yeah.
Okay. And so next time you need to find something, then like, oh, I think it was 2 years ago. And you can go right to that folder with that year and you'll find it, you know. And so you can go on over and over and over again. And you can do that where things get organized, as opposed to like things just piling up and like whole 15, 18 years of stuff is all in one thing, right? You'll never find anything, right? So it's really difficult. So I really like to think about it, that way. So it totally makes sense to me, right? So let me ask you, Ellie. Ellie, can I call you Ellie?
Absolutely. That was my grandma's name, by the way. So that's, I love Ellie.
Okay, good. So so let me ask, so you arrived in the US and you arrived in Chicago first. And so how did you end up teaching? Did you just land a job there teaching right away, or how did
No,
that happen?
not at all. I was actually working in my field. I was a marketing consulting and I got to travel, which, I've never been able before, and I got paid for it. I went to Asia, I went to Latin America, of course, a lot of Europe, and I worked for a consulting company that was consulting for consumer packaged goods. That was my background then. And it was super interesting. Well, and then, life happens, and then I had a baby, and you kind of think, well, you kind of have two choices. You can continue your career and travel and all that, and have someone else raise your child, or you can step back and find other things to do that are maybe not as involving or time consuming, and where you don't have to travel. That's kind of what I did. So um, I had a degree in mathematics and statistics from East Germany. So I did a lot of accounting work, which, I never thought I would use that degree ever again. so, and so finally, when we ended up here, the teaching thing is really, really new. Living in China, I started teaching people some English just because it was fun, and they would cook great meals for me, or I would get some, Chinese medicine treatment. And I discovered that I really like teaching. And then my older son graduated, and we had all these talks because you're so young when you graduate. How are you supposed to know what you want to do for the rest of your life? And I said, well, you don't have to know that. Just find something that you care about. And, you can always, life is not like the straight line. Life is kind of going any which way. And so don't stress out. And we were talking about our experience in China or in Asia where we traveled. And I said, imagine if you can go anywhere in the world, cultures. And while I was listening to myself, I kind of thought, I want to do that. Once, the boys left the nest, so to speak, I thought I could just go anywhere for a year or two, keep, the home base for the kids, but be anywhere and teach. And then I just looked and I found a degree that UCI offered, and I jumped right on it and I graduated. And after that, I was offered an internship at UCI, and I discovered how much pleasure I get out of teaching adults who are trying to learn to speak English, because I have been there. I know exactly what they feel. It is so frustrating because you're a smart human being and you arrive in America and you're trying to share some thoughts, but you don't have the words. And by the time you've done the translation back and forth, people are already talking about something else, and it's so frustrating. So I decided that's what I want to do.
Yeah, it is. I know that I learned some Spanish, but every time I tried to speak it or tried to listen, it always goes so fast, right? Like, hey, can you slow down like one word at a time? But that doesn't work that way, right? So,
Nope.
so I totally understand what that means, and I also understand and appreciate the fact about the immersion, because my dream would be like live in Paris for 1 or 2 years and just do everything that the local Parisian do. Eat the same food. You know. When I
See,
was there for a week, I did exactly that. Like I look and I would
mhm.
identify who are the locals because they dress differently and they're doing things that like it seems like they do that every single day. They go get their baguettes, they're on their bicycle, they go
Yeah.
to the store, they got their skirts on, riding their bike. So I know that that's not a tour. And with all the traffic and everything going around, they just know where to go, right? So that they can stay safe. And so I would stay in the distance, but I would follow them. Like where are they,
Yeah.
you know? So that was my way of like immersing myself, and I enjoy that. I really just enjoy like, hey, this is what Parisians do, so I want to do what Parisians do because there's a lot to be learned. I don't want to go to all the museums. I mean, I love the museums too, but I don't
Yeah.
want to be around the tourists because it's just something not quite natural to me, right? But I did spend another week in the countryside, and that was really great too. And so anyway, so the traveling is awesome, and so you got yourself a degree at UCI and discovered that you really like teaching, and so because you were at UCI, you interacted with a lot of Chinese students or immigrants or trying to learn English and things like that. And since you had some background traveling to China and things like that, those two things kind of, fit together, right?
Absolutely. Well, it was really funny because before I even moved to China, I kind of thought, okay, it's China, it'll be different. And I didn't expect it to feel so natural. And so I felt at home there. And I still have a hard time explaining that to anyone because I stuck out there like a sore thumb. I mean, I don't know, blonde, doesn't speak the language, that kind of stuff. I tried to learn some Mandarin. I mean, don't get me started. That must probably be the hardest language ever. Um, but to me, it felt very at home. The people are so industrious and so much fun. There's this childlike quality, and in China I saw playgrounds that were made for adults. They had adult size play equipment, and at first I thought, what? And people do play. And we had snow in Shanghai once, which is pretty rare, which stayed on the ground for more than like 4 hours. And people pelted each other. And I mean, like businessmen, they just flung their stuff to the side and they would just go crazy. That joy in life just really infected me. And like you said about Paris, I just went out and I wanted to see, okay, what do Chinese people do? And so I ended up in the park where people did these really weird movements and they looked so beautiful. And I saw a man who was probably just shy of 90. He put his leg up like on this wall. He almost did a split. And I thought, wow, that impressed me. And that's how I ended up looking into Tai Chi, and I found a school, and I had some help taking care of my kids because I went for 6 weeks onto a small mountaintop in Yangshuo, which is it's close to Guilin, Guangxi province, like southern China. No one spoke. Well, my master's, she spoke a little bit of English, but it was full immersion, and I've never done Tai Chi in my life. And I trained for 6 weeks, and that I was completely hooked. And my students at UCI, they were mostly from Asia. We had a lot of Koreans, Chinese, all over Vietnamese, all over the place. And to me, their stories and their lives and what they had done before they came to the States was so impressive. I just tip my hat to anyone who wants to improve their lives or wants to learn something new and just throws themselves out there and tries it, you know?
Yeah, I think in some ways there's a lot culturally there's a lot of hardship, in China,
Yeah.
historically and culturally,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
people there have learned that they're living at a time that was much better when there wasn't enough food for everybody, when there
Yeah.
was war, or when there was certain disaster and things like that, and they didn't have all these technologies and all these things that we have here in the States to sustain us, and so I think they've learned that through that they can survive anything, and so anything less than a disaster is like a it's like a freedom. It's like a like immense amount of possibility, and so they don't have any fears because nothing was worse than what they had endured and what they were told by their parents or grandparents, and so they 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 don't have a fear of trying new things or doing new things or going after stuff. I think that's my view, of it, anyways.
It's
But
a very good point. I agree because I've kind of asked myself, like, why do I feel so close to them? And then I thought, well, I grew up in communism. Things were rationed, and you couldn't buy stuff, and it was hard. You weren't allowed to travel or to leave the country or to go anywhere to the West. So to me, that kind of breeds a certain kind of people that are scrappy, and they can make things out of nothing. And we never ever throw anything away because you might be able to use it for something else.
so I want to ask you, you were talking about the Tai Chi, and I just want to ask you a quick question about that. So, what is the feeling, and what is it that really uh, amazed you about it when you first discovered and tried it? And what was that experience and feeling that caused you to really like study it and love it and practice it now?
Oh, that's a good question. At first, I was completely lost. Of course, I tried to just do the movements and Tai Chi. There's also Qigong, which is very closely related. So Qigong is kind of the Tai Chi, but without the martial arts intent. So for Tai Chi, you want to defend yourself. It's a soft martial art, and there's a lot of these movements to block and punch and kick. And Qigong is more like a moving meditation. And I was lucky that I had an amazing master. She has this school in Yangshuo, and she put a lot of emphasis on the basics, like just the breathing or holding, the posture and the very, very basics. And I know a lot of teachers are pushing the forms. There's like 5 different kinds of Tai Chi. There's a Chen style, by the way.
I'm
But
sure there is.
yep. And what I really liked is, other than, I mean, I'm very active. I've done yoga, I'm running, I'm cycling, I'm hiking, I'm doing a ton of things. But nothing has ever made me feel as if I am harvesting energy while I'm doing it. It's very hard to explain, but once you really get into the rhythm of it, and you can start really small. I mean, with small movements and things, but you focus your breath and you focus your movements, and it energizes. I have stopped drinking coffee. I know it's like, oh, so here's the person, right, who would just get up and get her coffee. Okay, I have to make an exception though. When I was at UCI and getting my degree, I took 8 classes. It was nuts. So I did not do Tai Chi in the morning, and I started getting to Starbucks, and it started with the regular size and they got bigger towards the end. It was like the venti with like 4 shots.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Tai Chi is like, when I do it in the morning and I train by myself sometimes, or I go to the beach, I have my group to train with. I also have a master that I train with to improve. And it's just, I do not need coffee. I don't even need tea. I drink hot water with lemon. There comes my Asian side and again, but
No, that's good. I love hearing that because I think a lot of people don't know, about the enjoyment of those things. And I think I do yoga every day, and that
oh,
is
good.
that is one of the things that one of the reasons I do it is because it's a conditioning and healing. And if I didn't do it, um, I feel I don't have energy. I feel sappy, and like I'm dragging and stuff like that. And with the way you answer that was exactly what I was asking is that experience, because there are things like um, that it's almost like a self uh, energizing thing. Um, and it's not necessarily coming from food or anything like that, but it comes
Yeah.
from the harmony of how your body works. When you're more recently, I learned that when you take care of your breath takes care of your heart because it
Mm.
goes think. And when your heart is beating properly um, at a high amplitude, meaning that the beats are strong. And if you guys don't know out there, if you guys are listening out there, when I say strong beating and weak beating, meaning like your heart's not beating um, very uh, very strongly and healthily. Like imagine somebody who's running but is laboring versus somebody who's running like a Olympic athlete, like really energetic. So you can do that by by doing your breath work and training your breath, and that will carry on to your heart. And then the rest of your systems, your digestive systems, your all your organs and stuff like that starts to go in line. And then you'll feel like you have so much energy because all your body and organs are working properly and don't have any blockage and or have any issues and things like that. But it all starts with your breath, starts with your heart, and then that carries on to the rest of the system. So anyway, that's what I learned. And yoga helps you do that. Yoga helps you harness that and regulate your breath, regulate your heart, regulate the rest of your body. And that is my explanation of why it's energizing afterwards. That's why it feels so good afterwards. um, as opposed to like if you were a runner and you went out training and running, which is good for your heart and organ too, but then you have all the soreness from it because it's such high impact.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think we're all on the same page with that. I really love hearing, what that does for you because I didn't know that, and because I don't have that practice, but I'm glad to hear that that's kind of does a similar kind of thing.
The chi is kind of the energy. And when you're new to something like Tai Chi, which is very deep and it involves much more than just knowing the motions. So I have this funny story because I'm still laughing about that. That was probably into my second or third week of my first Tai Chi retreat. So I was just not even, I had no idea. And I was standing in the garden and doing like the breathing exercises and the meditating exercises. And all of a sudden, I felt something on my legs. It was like prickling and tickling, and it was going upwards on my legs. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's the chi. Oh, I got it, I got it. And then it started hurting. And I thought, wait. And I'm looking down, and of course, it had rained before. And I was standing there, and ants were crawling up my legs and biting me. So that was my first so-called chi experience. It was, I still have to laugh because you wait for this amazing thing, like, oh, you have a vision or something. But what it really does is once, like you said, it's your body, and if you get your breath in line with everything, your organs start working. The chi removes like the blockages that you have in your body. And I think it doesn't really matter if it's, for you it's yoga, for me it's tai chi, and for someone else it might be, I don't know, some other exercise that just opens your body. And I think flexibility is highly underrated in our culture, because when you're not flexible, the tendency to hurt yourself when you exercise is so much higher. And when you gain flexibility, you also gain strength, and your body just functions better. It's really hard to explain, but since that anthill experience, you can feel the chi. It's kind of, when you see people doing qigong or tai chi, it looks so slow, and you think, oh wow, what does that do? But I sweat a lot, and I know people who really practice a lot and are very deep into it. I mean, your heart rate goes up, you start sweating, and this is the qi. I think the word for qi is also blood in Chinese. So it is this whole circulation that sweeps out anything that's blocking, and it makes you feel great. And, whatever does it for you. And
Yeah.
I'm happy to, start teaching some basic qigong. I mean, I've been doing tai chi for 2 years, which means like I've cracked the door open and I'm kind of peeking into that room of tai chi, and I'm like, oh, there's so much in there. But I do have a lot of connections, and I know some people who are amazing teachers. There is my master, his name is Ryan Lee, and he teaches a free class on Mondays now online. It's a YouTube thing, and I'm happy to post the link. And of course, donations are always welcome. But he is a person who teaches the basics. So whoever is curious about Tai Chi and is like, geez, and I don't even know what that is, that would be a good starting point, because first of all, you're in the privacy of your own home, so no one cares what you do. And so you get this sneak peek and can kind of just join in and see what it's like.
No, I think everybody should try it.
Okay.
For sure. So a couple other things I want to talk about. I know we're just like talking and talking and talking, and I think there's a couple other things I would love to know. I mean, so there's so much there. How did you, so you got your degree, you realized you like teaching. So tell us what you do now as far as you teaching. You're teaching English here, and then you also teach abroad, or kind of give us an idea, like, what you do with the teaching.
Well, I just got my degree in December, and I got accepted into an internship at UCI. That internship ended on March 13th was our last official day. And that was 1 week shy before our students would have graduated. So I was paired with a master teacher, and she handed over responsibilities as we went on. And we were a great team. We had so much fun, and we had 16 students. I knew their names by the end of the week and the first week, which I'm not good with names, but these names were so out there. I started writing them down. I did roll call every morning, and then I learned their stories. Just it was a grammar class, but they did a lot of grammar and writing. So they were just starting to learn how to write concise paragraphs and then string some paragraphs together. And of course, the topics often relate to, their homes or where they're from. And it was just amazing what these people have done in their lives. And their ages were from like early 20s all the way up to 70s, and such vastly different backgrounds. That was to me the most mind opening thing ever, because at first I thought, oh, I would like to teach children, after I got my degree. They're so cute and they're so open and they're so open to learn. They're like little sponges. They just soak up the languages. But I think it's the adult learners that really stole my heart because of their stories. And it's hard for grown-ups to learn a new language. But unfortunately, with all the closing down of everything, of course, students have not been coming in. And so for now, I am brushing up my resume. I am doing some tutoring online, which is more like some friends or some I have from back in China that I've been keeping until both my boys are gone. I hope I can teach here, and I hope that we can find some sort of teaching that also involves like the personal touch. I mean, online is good, but you know I'm a hugger, and I'm much better in person. And so I would love to see, even if we can't hug, but I would love to see some sort of have a couple days like on campus and then have some things online. But I really hope that things will open up again and that we will be able to have all these personalities around us again. There's so much to just dealing with people in person that I think it gets lost when you are just, you're not limited to this little rectangle. And, I could be wearing a Scottish quilt. You would never know.
No, I totally
It,
agree. I totally agree with you. And I'm much better in person too. so, so we're all much better in person. But at least, I see that in three different levels. Like if we didn't have this, right, then
yeah,
we would have to do like in the old days, we'd be on the phone, right, which is also, another connection lower. And so
yeah,
at least nowadays we can have this, and everybody has a phone, everybody has a computer, can do this. So I'm grateful for that, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to. But then still, it doesn't matter. It's still not a replacement for being in person.
yeah,
So I think you're right. I think it will have to, that some teaching and some communication things can be done over Zoom like this. And then we're going to have other availability to do things in person too. So
yeah.
that'll have to be, because we all need that real face-to-face connection, because it's just not the same.
Yeah. It's the personal touch. And this is probably another thing I like about teaching adults. I mean, with the language classes, you do see your students every day. And the semester is usually 10 to 12 weeks. So it's very intense. And you get to know them rather well. And there's always stuff coming up. Life is coming up, or problems, and not just visa problems or health or, homesickness. There is all these things that will come up. And it's when you see people in the classroom and you notice that, wow, that girl is really sad and down. And then as a teacher, you pick up on that when you see these people every day, and then you approach her after class and you just, it's just like, Haruka, is everything okay? And you seem a little down. And then, you're not just a teacher of whatever subject you're teaching, you also are kind of a mentor and like an older sibling or whichever one works, but there's a lot more involved than just teaching a subject.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I think for all of us to learn, we all need to feel safe and we all need to feel like we're connected. That's the best way you can learn, right?
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Okay, so I hope that, I mean, I guess you are open if somebody out there, would like some sort of teaching, whether it's language or if they want to join a Qigong class or something like that, right? So I'm open to that. So hopefully if people can see it and are interested, can reach out to you for that. And so I think we're going to uh, end it there, but we always have a couple of traditions that we like to do toward the end of the interview, as you know, if you watch our show here. So first thing is, what do you love about where you live?
I mean, to me it's still a miracle, and my children will just roll their eyes when I say, can you believe we live here? So it's, the ocean, of course, it's the weather, it's being able to be outdoors 365 days. And sometimes I even miss like a little storm, and I'm happy when it's raining or overcast, because it just feels like it's like, wow, is there too much of a good thing? But it's just the outdoors that I immensely enjoy. And I love hiking. I love running on the beach. Just being is a blessing. And I didn't grow up with that. So, Germany can get really, really dreary. I mean, the light. Oh, the light. Yes. I mean, when you're higher up on the globe, your days are way shorter in the winter. I mean, you have long summer nights where it's like light until 11 at night, but oh, the winters, they're drizzly gray. They hover around like 0 Celsius, which is just ugh. And then it doesn't get light before 9:30, and then at 3:30 it's already dark again.
Yeah,
It's not good.
yeah, I totally get it. And, a lot of people, recognize that, and they live here, and they know, how when they say the weather is great, that's exactly what they mean, right? So when I grew up here, I didn't know any different. I was like, "What do you mean the weather? Like, it rains sometimes, and it's not like that everywhere else." You know, apparently it's not. And I'll tell you that I've lived here all my life. And when I was in my 20s, I thought to myself, hey, maybe there's another place in the country that I might want to live, but I don't know where that is. Maybe I should go and travel and see if there's somewhere that I might want to live. So I went all over the country, all the different states and things like that. Um, and I ended up in Chicago, and I love Chicago. And out of
Ah,
all the places that I've been, that was the one place that I considered.
yeah.
And so when I considered it, I was there first time in like late June, and I was there. I stayed with a friend, and I just went all over the city. And I love the city because we don't have cities like that here. We just
Yeah.
have suburbs, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I stayed with a friend, and then I went to the museums. I went to the aquarium, all that stuff. And at the end of the day, my friend called me and said, "Hey, do you want to go on a boat and watch the fireworks?" And I said, "What?" And she said, "Yeah, yeah. We're gonna. My friend's boss has a boat. Let's go on the boat and watch the fireworks." I said, "Well, today is July 3rd. Isn't the fireworks not till the 4th?" She goes, "No, we do it on the 3rd and the 4th." And I said, "Really? What? How can that be?" Right? Because it's like somebody telling you like, hey, there's two Christmases, something like that, right? So I was like blown up, like, okay, let's go on the boat. So we went on the boat. It was a perfect night. It was so clear. The moon was full and it came up over the skyline. We're on the boat. I'm drinking a little wine, little cheese, and I'm sitting on the the bow of the boat and I'm looking at this thing, and 50, 100 yards away, the fireworks starts going off on the beach, and it was just a perfect skyline. And I was like, oh my God, I love this city. This, I might like want to live here. So my friend, I told her that later that night, and she says, oh, you should come back in the winter. so so I
Yeah.
did. So I did. That winter I went back, and it was really cold, and all the leaves fell out of the trees and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
I wanted it to snow because I wanted to know what snow was going to be like. And this was in late December, and that year it didn't snow very much in December. So I waited and waited and waited until the last night, the night before I was going to leave, get on the plane to come back, it started snowing. And it snowed like 2 feet that night. And
Wow.
so I thought, oh my God, okay, great. It's snowing. And I made my first snowman in the city, and I rolled with the snow with the kids and all that stuff. And so I thought, oh, this is great and everything. But, I wish I could have another couple of days to be in the snow. But then the next morning, um, my friend wakes me up at like 5, and my flight was something like at 7 o'clock. She wakes me up and say, hey, we're ready to go. I'm all dressed. I'm all good to go. I already dug the car out and it's
Yeah.
wonderful. And I thought, and I never heard those words, and it didn't work. I was like, what do you mean you dug your car out? Like, what does that mean? You know? And so of course I started to think about it, and I go, okay, now I understand. Like, it snows so much, you have to dig the snow out. And luckily for her, she woke up at 4 in the morning to dig out her car so that she can drive into the airport. And so I grab my bags and I get packed up, and we go in the car, and she goes, hey, would you do me a favor? Would you clear the windshield for me? And
Oh,
I
yeah.
said, what? She goes, yeah, here's the card, go do it. I go, what
Yeah.
do I do? What do I do with this thing? And she goes, all right, let me show you. So she goes out and she scrapes the windshield and things like that. I was like, oh my God, what is that? What do we do with it? And at 5 o'clock in the morning, the city was still dark. It
Yeah.
was winter time. You don't have a lot of sunlight. So we're driving down the road in the car, and it's still snowing. And I realized that all that she was trying, you can't see anything. Everything's covered in snow. She can't see anything, and all that she's trying to do is just not hit the buildings, because all you can see is the buildings, and there's this big road, and it doesn't matter if like you're in the lane, or it doesn't matter because you can't see anything anyways. You just
Yeah.
see the buildings on the side. You just try to go between the buildings. And I thought, okay, no, I don't think I could do this. So that ended my Chicago plans.
That
And
is so funny. And if we have time, I have just a teeny tiny anecdote about that. Exactly that. It was my first winter, and so it snowed, and it was beautiful. People dug their cars out and so on. And then I noticed there were all these chairs in the streets. And I thought, wow. I mean, not so many that it looked suspicious, but just like 2 or 3 chairs here and there. And I thought, oh, cool, free chairs. Because, I mean, I needed some furniture. And so I'm grabbing the chairs. They were nice wooden chairs. And I'm dragging them up. And I was on the way to my apartment when this really angry, like, Polish lady with the headkerchief like comes flying at me, and just rips or tries to rip the chair from me. And I was like, no, 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 I saw that first. So it turns out that once you dig your car out, you clear a spot. That is your spot in the street. And to make that clear to everyone else, you put a chair in the spot. At least that was 1996. And I just thought, what? And yeah, so the chair incident, I still sometimes laugh about that. And I'm not sure if it's still done, But you are lucky that you only saw the first day of the snow, because after that, there comes the salt trucks and everything is just salty, grimy stuff. And then the dog pee gets piled on it. And it's like minus 7,000 degrees. So the snow stays there, hardens, and gets so gunky and dirty. It's not pretty. So you got actually the best the best of it.
I got the best snow.
Yes, not the yellow snow.
Yeah, yeah. So that's my little story. So yeah, and helps to know that like at least I know what different weather is, you know. So I'm good here.
Yep.
All right. So lastly, you have a quote that you want to share with everybody out there.
Yeah. Well, it's been my email signature for so long, and sometimes thought, should I change it? But it's so relevant. It's a Dalai Lama quote, and it's basically, be kind whenever possible. It's always possible. And it's simple and it's easy, and it goes right into that belief of mine that you should try your best to treat others the way you want to be treated. And that's pretty much the gist of it. And sometimes I think people mistake kindness for weakness. Although I think in order to be kind, you actually have to be strong, not weak. And there's another little anecdote. Since you like I also do like these little funny stories. But I had a car repaired last year, and I got a courtesy vehicle, and it said on the back, courtesy vehicle. And I thought, okay, now I'm driving a courtesy vehicle, so I'm going to be very courteous. And I started to be very defensive and let other people go. Not so much, it's not like, oh, you go first. Oh, no, you go. No, no, not like that. But, and smiling at people and kind of waving. And it made me feel great. And that was it started out as a joke that I had with myself, the courtesy vehicle. But what I learned is it feels amazing to be the nice person. And then of course, yeah, you get one who just takes advantage of you, but you think, well, you seem to need it more than I do, and you just let it roll off. And it's really not, kindness is not about like huge things that you do. And of course, you can do big things, but the really tiny small things, they make a huge impact on everyday life. And I really believe in that.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I was thinking when you were saying, because look, it's simple, but then it's also very profound, because if I'm not kind, the person that's hurting is me,
Yeah.
right? I have to be unkind, and that doesn't feel good. Like nobody feels good being unkind to somebody else. So I'm hurting myself, right? And so what's the point, right? So be kind. When you're kind to other people, you feel good. And this is the whole point of life is, is, is to feel good and feel connected and feel, all these things. And if you want to choose to be unkind, well, you don't feel good, right? So nobody wants to not feel good, right?
Yeah.
So you just be kind, then it's not for them. Although it could be, but it's for yourself because you feel good, being kind, right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much for that. I've really, really enjoyed this. I love all the stories, and I think we only scratched some of the surfaces of some of the story. I know there's a lot there, so I may have to have you back sometimes to tell some more stories. I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad that you came on and enjoyed this time with me. Is there anything that you would like that you can tell people about what you're doing? I guess is it just about the education that you're doing, or whatever it is that you maybe want to ask people if they would like to do with you?
Mm, if there's one thing I would like to tell people is, don't try to be what you think you should be or what other people expect of you. It's more like, be like bamboo. Bamboo is incredibly strong. I mean, try to break one of those big suckers in my yard. It's not easy, but it just moves with the wind. It bends, and there will be times probably where we all have to bend down and, nose to the grindstone kind of thing, but then it just pops back up. And the being like bamboo is what I mean. It's like you feel the things that life throws at you, and you kind of go with the flow a little bit. And that is a lesson that's not easy for a German person, like type A perfectionist personality. Let me tell you that. It's a learning curve, but it really helps. And it brought me so much insight and joy when I started listening to what's around me and so obvious, instead of just having this picture in my head and just going after it. So that would be probably my most important thing that I've learned in my life.
So, Ellie, thank you so much. I think you are strong. I think you are flexible at the same time. And so I appreciate you, and I thank you for your time. And for everybody out there, if you're just hopping on, catch the replay and listen to all these great stories that we have. Ellie definitely does not live the typical life, and I think it would inspire all of you, to kind of step outside your comfort zone a little bit, follow your heart a little bit, and kind of try something new. So, so that's it for today. I will be back tomorrow with another guest, and I hope you all enjoyed it, and have a great night, and I will talk to you all soon. Goodbye.